What's going on, everyone? I'm back with another video, and this time I'll probably be cutting this one over a couple of days. We'll see how it goes. Still kind of in the midst of the holidays, and as probably like everyone's going through, it's busy time for me. I don't have time to work on just the bike like I'd like to. That's why I put out that quick update video. I actually tried doing some quick updates here and there, and I just didn't like how the video came out, and I was really focused on the work that I was doing instead of actually filming. So if anyone's really looking forward to releasing these, sorry you missed some of the gripping action. All that's really happened is fuel tank drama. The fuel flange is still leaking, and it's still being an absolute pain in the ass. So I'm trying to get that better, but we're not seeing a great deal of improvement. So we're going to have to just kind of troop on with that. I'm trying a couple different things. So the first thing, I bought another fuel tank. You guys know I live out in Southern California, and so I was able to, there's a couple resources out here to find used stuff, and through eBay I located a fuel tank that was about 20 miles south of me and down in Anaheim. So I drove out there on Friday and picked it up, and fuel flange is still leaking. We still can't keep gas in the fuel tank, which is bad. So we've tried a couple different things. I'm on my fourth O-ring. Now, I'm really just using the O-rings once or twice to try to seal it, and I'm intentionally using more O-rings than's probably necessary just to eliminate that possibility. But every time I install it, I get a steady drip. I stood out here with my dad for about 30 minutes today and just let fuel drip out and watch where it was coming from, and I'm convinced it's still the flange. It's kind of a pain in the ass, because is it the second? The question we have right now is if it's the second fuel tank that's leaking, include the same way that the old tank is leaking. I don't know. The next step is, well, I'll show you. Yeah, let's switch over to filming over there, and I'll show you what I got. Okay, so what you can see from the desk, that seems to get messier every time I seem to film it. We got two fuel tanks. I don't think I showed it in the quick update. I think this is the first time the YouTube has seen the new fuel tank, but so there it is. I flip it over and show it off to see, there's some differences with it. We'll talk about that another time, because right now I'm giving it every opportunity to dry. As you can see, I've got the flange in again. I'm trying to install it this time using some pretty good gasket maker. You can see it's brownish reddish stuff. It's Permatex #1. It's pretty common flange maker. It's fuel resistant and whatnot. This is kind of the last straw for the flange until I try to put buy a whole new flange or fuel pump base or whatever you want to call it. But this time we're going to try it with the flange, with the Permatex basically doing all the work. Every other time, I've tried a couple of different combinations of things. Almost every time I've been trying to let that O-ring do its job as it would do stock, but it's just not holding the fuel. So trying it with the new tank, because the new tank looks healthier in terms of that O-ring around the flange. I should say the mating surface on the fuel tank itself looks healthier. On the original tank, it was just a little bit warped. In fact, you can kind of catch it in the film here. It's not perfect. So, yeah, so like I said, we've got it in there. It takes about 2 hours for that stuff to set. And there's a lot in there, so we'll probably give it a little bit more time just to let it get nice and hard and do a nice barrier there. And if that doesn't catch it, then there's something else leaking. It sure does look like it's coming from the flange, but anyway, that's where we're at there. But as I said, I'm kind of giving up on, I shouldn't say giving up, I'm going to move on to other things. And so that brings us to our next thing. So the next project is to replace the coolant hoses. I just it needs new coolant hoses. So I've got that bag there. I ordered online, and we're just going to, as the bag says, one hose at a time. You take a hose off, put a hose on. I'm going to try to use new clamps as well. First thing I'm going to have to do is get all the fluid out of the bike. And my guess is this process is going to take a couple of days. Once I get the fluid out, you know, it's something I can just walk in the garage and spend 10 minutes taking a hose off and putting one on. So we're just going to kind of plod along at this. I don't think this will be too hard. The other thing I want to do as I'm going through these hoses, I'm going to take both the reservoir tanks out and give them a good inspection to see if either one of those is leaking. I suspect one or both is. And we'll just treat them with some epoxy stuff, epoxy buildup, and I think that'll be safe enough to just reuse the old tanks without having to order stuff online that'll probably have the exact same issue. So yeah, so we're going to plod along, and I'll probably film some of this, and yeah, we'll get to it. Okay, so we're going to drain the fluid now, drain the coolant out, I should say. I've already loosened the bolt up. Mine was a bit fussy. I had to put a lot of torque on the Allen key. I ended up using some penetrating oil to loosen it up, and after I soaked it for a few minutes and gave it a good tug, it popped right off. So I was a little bit worried about having yet another ridiculous why did that break, oh my god kind of moment. But the drain is right here. This is the this is the spot that the manual calls to drain it from, which is the the lowest point in the system. So I'm going to go ahead and drain it from right there. You can see it's already dripping a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't become yet another fluid leak for the vehicle. Good news, I did stop the oil leak though. So anyway, we're just going to pull it out of there. Hopefully we don't have another repeat of some of my earlier escapades with some coolant. Just make sure it's all nice and seated underneath there, and well, it doesn't have much power behind it at all. Maybe if I open it up from the top here. Yep. So I'm just, you can't see on the camera. Oh shit. Yep. There we go. You can't see, but I opened up the filler valve from the top. Never seem to get all the fluid in the bucket at once, do I? So it's nice and clean. I haven't done a flush yet, but that's good. This fluid's only been in there for a little bit, so we'll see how good it looks, but it doesn't look too bad. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove a hose here and start getting to it. Probably be easiest to start from the bottom, towards the bottom of the system. This is a bigger hose. I don't know that it really matters. If I remove one of these lower hoses, it'll help the top ones drain, so it'll only make a mess once or twice. So let's go ahead and see if we can dig up what goes where. That's a pretty close match. Yeah, that's got to be it. Okay. Nice snug new hoses on there. Yeah, the way a lot of these projects have been going, just almost everything I've put on this bike so far I've had to take off. And I'm thinking right now, am I going to be looking back on this moment, you know, every time I expect a triumph, and I end up with another project. Yet to really have any big triumphs with this machine, so am I just going to be looking back on this going, oh yeah, that was the moment I thought I had the coolant hoses all fixed up, and boy was I wrong. Let's see, I'm not quite the bright-eyed optimist I started this project as. That these are supposed to be the same part, and so I'm just gonna go with the flow on this. I think it's gonna fit about the same. If anything, I might cut it down, but it's got about the right length. I'd rather not cut just because I don't have good I'm just going to go with it. Try it, see if it fits. I can just get it in there, that'd be nice, huh? Yeah, I don't think it's going to want to sit on there like that, so we'll just pick it off and cut it down. Okay, I've got all of these done, nice and tight. I have one more hose that I'm not sure where it goes, but we'll find that in a minute. Pretty sure that this, the main reservoir, possibly the overflow reservoir, are not healthy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove it and take a look. So first thing to remove it is these, taking off the ignition switch here, which if anyone's watched my videos before knows is one of the things that does need to be replaced. But being pretty meticulous about one problem at a time. At least I'm trying to. Just pull this back where they came from. I have a feeling, I think I remember reading that there is an extra hose that maybe the 748 has that the 916 doesn't. I'll have to review that. So we'll come back to it. For now, figure out what's holding this on. There's a line down there. That's one. There's a line. Oh. It's the line I'm looking for. Found it. So I've taken the main tank out, the main reservoir, and it's healthy. But this one, this is the overflow, and it's definitely got a leak. You can see it's really juicy there. There's coolant all around this plug, and I plugged it and blew on it, and there's air coming out of there. So there's blatantly a leak there. Cool, we know where the leak is. We can cover it up with some epoxy and move on. So, hey, we caught it. Okay, I'm going to just do a wrap up here and close out this video because at this point the project's just kind of moving along in trickles. I'm getting a little bit of time here and there to work on things, and so you know, if I don't end it somewhere, it's just going to go on forever. So where are we at now? Let's see. So I finished putting the new coolant pipes on, the new coolant hoses, I should say. They're all installed. The next step with that is to refill the system, and I have to refill it and start the bike and let the coolant cycle around, squeeze the hoses, let the air out. It's going to take a little bit. I still do need to reinstall the two reservoirs, the overflow and the main. I have the overflow here, and I've patched it. Right here, I've just put some epoxy on there. I've sealed off one of the holes, and I'm just going to glue the plate on that there's normally a plate that goes something like this. And I'm just going to glue the plate on, and that's what bolts it all in. I think it'll be all right. My concern with that was it was leaking through the hole. So there's these screw holes, and you can actually see these lines. There's a line going like this, a line going like that, and it was so complicated. It just made more sense to just epoxy over everything. I'll probably sand it up so it's nice and smooth, and then just move on with life. It doesn't have to be perfect. It sits under the bike, and it just needs to not leak, right? So that's done. One last thing with the coolant hoses, I do need to get some new hoses to replace some of the smaller hoses that didn't come in the kit. I'll probably order those tonight and put those on sometime this week. So the coolant stuff is progressing, and actually it's kind of nice because it was like the first thing I've done that didn't, end in some sort of disaster yet. Who knows? Maybe I'm sure I punctured a hose or something trying to install it. I can think of a couple spots where I'm like, ugh. Anyway, it's probably good. As far as the tank goes, the ever running mystery of the fuel flange. So my dad and I took a look at it, and we kind of decided to try to kind of use some gasket maker on overload. We're kind of going outside the norm of how you're supposed to do it, but it's just not working. So we put a lot of gasket maker on there, which means it takes way too long to dry. Hopefully it will dry correctly, and it will actually stop the fuel from coming out of the flange. We're going to give it take a look and see how it comes out. If it doesn't dry in a few days, I'm probably going to give up on this method and just buy a new flange. They're not that expensive, but I just don't know where the problem lies. Is it the flange? Is it the tank? Is it the flange? Is it the tank? Is it some other magical thing? The odds of it being yet another bad tank, you would think, are pretty low, because I don't think most people have these problems. And I don't think I'm that incompetent in the way I'm installing these O-rings. I've done it like 4 times now. You think even if I was a little bit of a goober, I'd get lucky eventually, right? So we're going to see if this make a gasket stuff works. Hopefully it does, and I can move on with life, because that's like the big holdup right now, right? Once that's done, once the coolant pipes are back in, then I can actually ride it around the block. And I probably finished every video like that, but it's, progressively, it's always been this fuel tank. I mean, basically everything I've dealt with since I've bought this bike has been a fuel system. I'm a little bit tired of it at this point. I'd like to move on with something else. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you guys updated. And so, yeah, like I said, we'll have some resolution eventually with the fuel tank. Worst case scenario is if the additional flange doesn't work, there are Ducati dealerships nearby, Ducati Newport Beach. I tend to go to SoCal Motors in Brea. They've always handled my machines really well. I'll take it to them and pay them a bit of money to have a mechanic who's licensed in this stuff install it for me. Maybe I'm just, you know, using sausage fingers on it or something. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, we'll wrap this up. Again, appreciate everyone who is watching, leaving comments and stuff. Rate, comments, blah, 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 all that crap. Yeah, if you're enjoying it, I'm glad. And if not, don't watch. All right, everyone, have a happy New Year. Oh, yeah, today is New Year's. So I'm shooting this on New Year's. Of course, the work was done over a couple of days. But happy New Year, everyone. And here's looking forward to a productive and safe 2019. Bye.